Hello to you all. Welcome to another session here with us at Mathematics Resource Center. And today we'll be looking at the topic factorizing quadratic expression. I will be using the ABC method for these questions today. Alright, so we have two examples and two year-term questions. I'm going to do both examples and the year-term questions, they're there for you to complete. Alright, so let's look at number one. The first thing that I want to do is to identify the terms. And I said we're using the ABC method. So this number 2 here, the number in front of our x squared is our A. The number in front of our x is our B. And the number that stands alone, that don't have a variable, is our C. In other words, the coefficient of x squared is our A, the coefficient of x is our B, and the coefficient of C is not a coefficient, and this constant is our C. Alright? So let me just write it here. A equals 2, as you can see, so it's just the numbers that they're equal to, not A equals to x squared, it's just a number. Alright? B equals 21. And what does C equals to? Tell me. Yes, C equals 40. Alright, so C equals 40. So there we're doing our ABC method. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look for our factors. In order to find our factors, what we're going to do is to look for two numbers. Let me just write it a bit clearer. So we have AC and we have B. So B is 21. And AC means A times C, so multiply our 2 by our 40, which gives us 80. And we're going to look for our factors. And that's two numbers. When you multiply them, you get 80. But when you add or subtract them, you get 21. So you're looking for two factors, alright? So two factors, when you multiply them, you get 80, when you add or subtract them, you get 21. So you can start by thinking about 2 times 40. 2 times 40 definitely gives you 80, but when you add 2 and 40, you don't get 21. When you take 2 from 40, you don't get 21. So it's not 2 and 40. Let's think about 10 and 8. 10 and 8. When you multiply 10 times 8, you get 80. When you add 10 and 8, you do not get 21, you got 80. If you take 8 from 10, you still don't get 21. So it's not 10 and 8. How about, let's try 16 and 5. Alright? When you multiply 16 times 5, you get 80. When you add the 16 and 5, you get 21. Okay, so our factors are 16 and 5. So we have our factors. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to replace the B term with these two factors. So right here where we have B, we're going to take that out and we're replacing them with these two factors. So our first term here is going to remain the same. So that's 2x squared. Our last term remains the same, untouched, that's 40. What we're going to do now with this middle term is that we're replacing it with these two factors. So our middle term is now going to be 16x. So it's 21x is 16x. And the next part is going to be 5x. And if you look carefully, you realize that we haven't really done anything because 16x plus 5x definitely gives us 21. Alright, so we rewrite it without changing its value. Alright, so that's what we have done so far. The next thing that we're going to do now is to factorize by grouping. So we factorize by grouping the first two there, and we group the next two. And we're going to go ahead and factorize. So we look at 2x squared plus 16x. Let's look at the numbers. What's the highest number can you divide into 2 and 16 without leaving a remainder? Think about it. Oh, that's 2. So our factor here is 2. And then the highest for our x now it must be common to both sides for us to write it down as a part of our highest common factor. So yes, the x is common. And we look for the lowest power to write down. So the power here is 2 and the power there is 1. So the power we're going to write down is 1. So the lowest power of the variable that is common makes up our HCF. So the HCF of 2x squared plus 16x is actually 2x to the first power. Now we're going to open our brackets and we're going to divide. We're going to say 2x into 2x squared. So you have 2x squared divided by 2x. And that's x cancel x, 2 cancel 2. So we're left with x. So there goes our x. Alright? Go with the next part. We have 16x being divided by 2x. So it's 16x divided by 2x. X cancel x, 2 into 2, 1, 2 into 16. There goes 8 times. So that is 8. Alright? So we're finishing our first section. We have worked out, we have factored out 2x out of our first group. We're going to go to the second group and we're applying the same procedure. Alright? So go to the second group, and something that you should know is that in the second group, your brackets here should be the same bracket there. So in truth and fact, you could have just written down your bracket there and figure out what here could give us the bracket there. Alright? But let's go through the process. So we're going to look at 5x and 40. And we're going to say to ourselves, what's the highest common factor for 5x and 40? Let's look at the 5 and the 40. What's the highest number we can divide into 5 and also divide into 40 without leaving a remainder? Ooh, that's 5. So I go ahead and write down my 5. Alright, now I look if my variables are common, if any variable is common. I see x there, no x there. So I definitely know that x is not going to be a part of my HCF because it's not common to both terms. It needs to be on both sides for me to say, to even consider it to be a part of my HCF. Alright? Now that I've found my HCF to be 5, I'm going to go ahead and say 5 into 5x. So I have 5x divided by 5. See if I write that better. So you have 5x divided by 5. 5 cancel 5, leave us with x. Good? Alright? And then we go to the last part, and that is 5 divided into 40, and that leaves us with 8. Now, let's do a check. My bracket here and my bracket there, are they looking the same? Yes, they are looking just the same. Given that they are the same now, I can move to the next step. So this is like that challenge wherein you must make sure that you have completed one step successfully before moving on to the next step. Alright, so now that we have completed this step successfully, let's move on to the next step. And at the next step now, what we're going to do is to write down one of the brackets that is common. And then in another bracket, we're taking the terms that the HCF that we have written down in front of the first bracket and in front of the second bracket, and that's going to fall into a bracket by themselves. So it's 2x, and here is plus 1. And that's it. There goes the factorization. So this is basically the opposite of expanding brackets. And if you expand these brackets, your answer is supposed to be this, right? So factorization is the opposite of expanding brackets. Alright, so that's number 1. And I'm going to move on to number 2. Remember that you have a similar number 1 to complete and a similar number 2 to complete, and the answer will be in the description. The link will be there in the description for you to click on that and do the answers to these two. Alright, so let's go with number 2. And for number 2, what we're going to do is the very same ACB method. So we're going to identify our A, our B, and our C. So my A here is 4, my B here is negative 5, and my C here is negative 6. The next thing that I'm going to do is to find my AC and to write in my B. So my B is negative 5. Not just 5 now, negative 5. So make sure that you're saying the exact thing that you're seeing. Alright, so it's negative 5. And then AC now, remember AC means A times C. So A is 4 and C is negative 6. So AC would definitely be 4 times negative 6, which gives us 24. Am I correct? No, it should be negative 24. So my answer is negative 24 for my AC. Now that I've found my AC and my B, I can go ahead and work out my factors. Alright? So my factors are two numbers. When I multiply them, I get negative 24. And when I add or subtract them, I get a negative 5. So the fact that I'm going to end up with a negative number, it's more than likely that my number, one is going to be positive and one is going to be negative. Alright? So let's look for two numbers that I can multiply to get 24, and when I add or subtract them, I'll get 5. So I'm for, how about 2 and 12? 2 times 12 gives 24, and if I put a negative in front of anyone, it would be negative 24. And then, but 2 times 2 from 12 does give me 5, and 12 plus 2 does give me 5. So it's not 2 and 12. Understand the part? So let's look for two others. Two other factors of 24. Two numbers that when you multiply them, you get 24. So let's look at 4 and 6. Okay, 4 times 6 definitely give me 24. And if I put a negative here or a negative there, 24 will become negative. Good? But 4 plus 6 is 10. And 4 from 6 is 1. So I won't be getting my B. So the two conditions must be present. So it's not 4 and 6. This math is so long. Where are the factors? Let's continue. We're about to find them. Let's look at 3 and 8. 3 and 8. So when you multiply 3 times 8, we get negative 24. And when we add or when we subtract 3 from 8, we get 5. Alright? So as relates to the signs now, if our B is negative, that means the bigger number is negative. Alright? So given that B is negative, the bigger number is negative. So our negative term would be the 8 and our positive would be the 3. Alright? So you remember me saying that the fact that AC is negative, that one is going to be positive and one is going to be negative. And since the B is negative, then the bigger number would be negative, or the number that appears the biggest would be negative. Alright? Now that I have my two factors, I'm going to take out that middle piece there and put that in. So this is you refurbishing your house. So you have a 4x squared, and you're like, I don't want that piece of carpet anymore. I want two fancy pieces. So I'm going to put in this fancy piece here, which is plus 3x. And I'm going to add another fancy piece, which is negative 8x. And both of them is covering the same space. So even though I changed the carpets, the color and the style, I still have the same space covered, right? And I have my minus 6 just the same. So what I did was to replace that middle there with these two terms, alright? So now that I've done that, I am going to go ahead and factorize by grouping. Alright? So in factorizing by grouping, I group my first two terms and I group my last two terms. Coming with my first two terms, I look at the 4x squared and the 3x. And I'm saying that what can I divide into 4 and also divide into 3 without leaving a remainder? And I don't see anything there other than 1. So I don't see anything higher than 1. So I look at my variables now, x squared and x. The HCF of x squared and x is x. Good? So now I'm going to go ahead and open my bracket. X into 4x squared. X cancel x. So that leaves me with 4x. Good. Now I'm going to say x into 3x. So it's 3x. Divide by x cancels x. That leaves me with 3. So I close my bracket there. Good. Now go to the next part. And I have negative 8x minus 6. So here goes the interesting part now. What do I divide into negative 8x and also divide into negative 6 without leaving a remainder? And I look at 8 and I look at 6 and the number 2 comes to mind. So I go ahead and write down 2 here. And I might put positive 2 and open my bracket and say 2 into 8x. Negative 8x will leave me with negative 4x. The moment I've done that, I realize that this is saying negative and that is saying positive. So something is wrong. Let me go ahead and change from dividing by positive 2 to dividing by negative 2. So the error is the sign. So you're going to go ahead and change from dividing by positive 2 to negative 2. So I say negative 2 divided into negative 8x, and now I get 4x, positive 4x. Then I say negative 2 divided into negative 6, and I get positive 3. Both brackets looking the same? Yes, they are. So now I can go ahead to the next step. So next step now, I write down one of those brackets because they're both the same. So I go ahead and I write 4x plus 3 in one bracket, and then in the other bracket, my xth, or the numbers that are outside the brackets, are going to go in that bracket. So the x goes there, and here, the negative 2. Alright? So there goes my solution. And remember that if we expand our answer here, we should get back what we started with. So that's a way to check to see if the answer that you get here is indeed correct. Alright? So that brings us to the end of our lesson. Thank you for watching with us and joining in our usual lessons. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. And if you've done that already, thank you. Alright? And remember that to click in the link below to view the answers for these 2 questions. Bye-bye.